When I've been in the field with the military, the vast majority of the time, I'm using my knife to open MREs. I'm using it as a screwdriver. I'm cutting zip ties with it. I'm cutting 550 cord, making little traps for survivor-related stuff. This is a great knife for all of those purposes.
Hello, welcome back to the Late Boy Scout channel, and thanks for tuning in to this review of the Brous Blades Silent Soldier Flipper in G10 and Acid Stone Washed. Isn't that nice looking? What a unique and cool knife. The Silent Soldier Flipper has been out for a while. This one is a special edition, number 110 of 1,000, as you can see there. I'm sorry to Jason, I'm sorry to all you guys that I didn't get this review out sooner, because I think that this exact model is no longer available. There are various other models and varieties of the Silent Soldier available now, and they will be available in the future, I'm sure, because this knife has been part of Jason's lineup from the beginning, I think. It's one of his first flippers or folding knives, if I'm not mistaken, and it is a sweet one. I've got some critiques for it, for sure, that I'll lay into it as the review progresses, and I'll also show you some testing against paper, against cardboard, against wood, and I'll compare it and contrast it against a handful of other great EDC knives throughout the duration of this review. But we can start by just showing you some of the features and going through some of the specs. I mentioned before that it is G10 here on the handle, on the scale I should say, and if you look at those liners, those are beefy. Those are really thick. This is going to be a tough EDC knife, guys. Really tough. You can tell that it's a liner lock there, and it locks up really nicely. The lockup out of the box was absolutely perfect. No side to side, no front to back, nothing at all. And yet, it is fast and smooth. With that flipper right there, which, as you can see, kind of comes way down. You may be used to other flippers. I might as well bring one in right now. Here's the Ken Onion Kershaw Leak. You can tell where that flipper is and how that rides in comparison. However, I mean, it seems like it rides really far down, and that would be awkward, but once you engage it, it's like, no, that's actually where it ought to be. You can also tell that there's this gigantic hole in the blade, and no, that is not a thumb hole. In fact, if you have the blade closed, you can't really access that very well at all. I suppose you could kind of access it. It's kind of like that if you pinch it with your thumb and middle finger. But as far as deploying it in a spider hole kind of a way, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work. So what is that big hole for? Obviously, it's for your index finger. And as I talk about the testing in a little bit here, I'll explain that that is actually a big advantage. You can see that there's some top side jimping right here that is really nicely done. I love that we've got not just sort of a cross cut going on here, but a big cut going down the middle as well. And you can tell that that blade, as it kind of curves down here, you can see that the cut actually goes straight across. So whether there was a belt or some other kind of blade, it's kind of ground straight into that. And probably did that after he did the cuts. I don't know in what order these machining sequences happen, but anyway, you can see how that looks, and that is really attractive and very functional as well. You can use that without getting your finger up into the finger hole. You can obviously go something like this and get some good work done. You got great control over the blade, in my experience. You can do that really well from here as well. It feels great once you get it in this position. And again, I'll talk about that when I show you the testing. Some of the specs on it. What's it weigh? It's over 4 ounces. It's about 4.65 ounces. So it's not light for the size that it is. And it is, kind of small. The blade length is 2.5 inches. Okay, the overall total length is about 6.375. Not a large knife. It's fairly thick. How thick is it? I don't know if I have that information. Oh, yes, I do. It's 0.62 inches thick. So over half an inch thick. And I thought that would be a deal breaker for me. Like, no way. You guys know I like thinner knives, right? You guys know I like real thin knives, and I just rave about them. So when I got this one, I was like, man, that's too thick. I can't do that. But pocketed it, carried it around, and I was like, this actually feels really good in pocket, and I don't mind it at all. I think, you know, it's got kind of an overall size that is easily pocketable, that carries really well, and it's not, you know, you don't feel the weight that much. Again, 4.65 ounces, heavier than most blades I own, but I don't feel it. It just feels nice in pocket. So there's a little something. Engaging the liner lock is, it's not, I'm not going to say it's hard, but it's buried in there pretty well. It's pretty well flush, right? So in order to get to that, you've just got to kind of dig your thumb way in there and get it. And you can. It's not like it's not doable. You can definitely do it. When you do that, that flipper kind of comes and gets your thumb, stops you from closing it all the way, which is a good thing. Then you obviously move your thumb and close it the rest of the way. So that's good. No lanyard attachment means no hole at least. You could probably run something through the pocket clip, and we can talk about the pocket clip while we're on that subject. It is extremely deep, as you can see. So this buries completely in your pocket. I mean, it's gone. And that's a great thing. Emblazoned with your Brous blades there, and there, of course. The G10 is polished. It is not grippy, okay? You're not going to get any kind of bitextural thing happening here, kind of making you hold on to the knife. It doesn't. That's not what this is aimed at. This is aimed at sort of more of a comfort factor, and really the retention comes from this right here, right? And you retain that perfectly as you're using it, cutting, then you've got your fingers available to you as well. You know, and then you can do some more cutting, and then you don't have to pocket the knife, right? You can do things with the knife in your hand and with complete dexterity from my experience. And that's really cool. So some really cool features to this knife. I think I've covered the majority of them. There's probably a lot of other things we could talk about, but we'll stop there for now, and if we touch on anything else, we will do that. Perfect centering. I don't think I'd mentioned that, but it came just centered perfectly. And it's gorgeous. You know, great looking fit and finish on it. Really, really nice. You can see the swedge up there. It's just a really good looking knife. Really unusual design from my perspective. It's not kind of a classy, classic folder. It's got some style to it. Some definite style to it, and Jason has done some great work on this. But let's move on to see some of that testing. So I started off, of course, with a little bit of paper, which I typically do. We want to test the edge that the knife comes with, right? And to say that it's the edge it comes with is a little bit of not a mistake, but not quite right, because I usually use the knife a fair bit before I get onto sort of the EDC battery of tests. What I mean by that is I'll carry it for a few weeks, and then I'll go, okay, well, let's get it, and I'll use it in daily tasks as well. And then I'm like, all right, now we got to try through all these different, sort of battery of tests. And so the paper is one of those tests. And I found that the edge on it perhaps was a little too obtuse to really cleanly slice the way I wanted it to. It is an edge more designed for strength than super fine slices. That's kind of how I would describe it. It still does a good cutting job on everything you want it to cut, and it's, again, kind of really designed to be a more robust, tough knife, not that super fine detail kind of a knife. And I see this as having some defensive capabilities to it, and I'll get into that a little bit later on in the video. In fact, I'll let my friend Tyler talk about that. But as far as just the straight up, sliceability of it, I'm not going to say it's super lacking, but it's not as fine as some other edges I've seen and used. Let's talk about how it cut through cardboard, though. Once I got that in hand, I felt, and I kind of bore down on it, bore down on the cardboard. It was double-walled cardboard and cutting across the fluting. And it was painful in hand, to be honest, at first, because I was using it in kind of a hammer grip. Then when I rotated my thumb up to the top and got a little more control, it became more comfortable. I could slice through that cardboard with, again, more control and more comfort. Then I switched to putting my finger through that giant finger hole and thumb on top of the blade, and it was actually really comfortable at that point with like incredible control. So I really feel like if you're going to use this knife in any way remotely hard, or do some decent work with it, get your finger through that big giant hole in the blade. That is how you're going to get a really positive grip on this knife. That's how you're going to get great control with it and good comfort as well. I also moved on to, of course, a little bit of a 2x4 and carved away at that for a little bit. And I did start to notice, once again, with that obtuse angle to the blade, to the edge, I should say, that the slicing and the real digging and prying was harder to do. Again, I tried it from with different grips, sort of a hammer grip at first, wasn't liking that, and then again went back to the finger through the hole, which was considerably more comfortable for, again, no matter what you're doing with this knife, if you have your finger through that hole, it's considerably more comfortable. So I would say that it did well on that battery of tests. Not the best I've seen, to be honest. But again, the tests I do are geared towards use. I mean, like some whittling, some EDC type of, use. All right, not the stash it in your pocket, be ready for a defensive encounter type of stuff. I want to see the knife used. I don't know about you guys, but I like to see it used. I like to get it in hand and use it hard, or at least use it well, and get a sense for how it's going to perform. All right, now on the subject of defensive use, I want to again defer to my friend Tyler, who's got some experience with tactical knife-related things. He's got a few things to say about this knife.
How you doing? My name's Tyler. I've got a channel called T-Jack, and I'm here today with the late Boy Scout. I've been training in martial arts since I was 8 years old. I've worked in law enforcement in the military. One of the certifications I have is through the military as a Kali instructor. Me, personally, I'm always carrying a pistol, so I'm looking for something that's going to work in conjunction. Okay, from a purely tactical perspective, I'm looking for something that I can access from the left side and use to defend myself because I'm trapping the gun in because someone's trying to take it from me. I would definitely buy this as a utilitarian knife. I like it as an initiatory military type knife. I'm not a big fan of it as a reactionary knife when it comes to knife defense. It's not that it's hard to open, it's that it requires fine motor skills to open. Pull it out, that's a gross motor skill. Flip it open, that's a fine motor skill. Put my finger inside, that's a fine motor skill. Okay? So it's my assessment with this knife, if I'm using this as a reactionary tool, that's a problem. I'm probably not going to buy this knife for a reactionary defensive type thing. Now, if I know I'm going into the situation, I've already read the warning signs, and I have the ability to draw it, pull it, put my finger in it, maybe put it back in my pocket, okay? Now, it's a little more appropriate for the situation. The problem is, I can't be walking around like this with a knife in my pocket. I might as well have a fixed blade right there, right? Now let's be a little more pragmatic, realist about this as well. When I've been in the field with the military, the vast majority of the time, I'm using my knife to open MREs. I'm using it as a screwdriver. I'm cutting zip ties with it. I'm cutting 550 cord, making little traps for survival-related stuff. This is a great knife for all of those purposes. The main reason why is it's stout, so I'm not going to break it. It's a nice handful, okay? Very easy to control. You can choke really high up on that blade. This, I dare say, and I haven't used it this way, but I dare say that because of the fact that I can put my hand on it just like this would be a great skinning knife so that I'm not ripping the gut sack open when I take the pelt off. From a utilitarian perspective, this looks like a great knife. From a tactical perspective, unless I'm initiating the contact, I probably won't use that.
All right, so the EDC capabilities of this knife, from my standpoint, are definitely there. It can do the job. From a tactical standpoint, well, you heard Tyler's perspective on it. I'm not going to argue or counterpoint that at all. I just want to let it stand on its own. Now let's compare this knife to a handful of other great EDC knives. There's the Silent Soldier flipper. We'll get the box slightly out of the way. The flipper, let's try, how about, here we go, Spyderco Sage 1, which is a fantastic EDC knife. I just love it. There they are kind of lined up. Let's get a little better lighting on those blades if we can. I'm just kind of not really much better, but there we are anyways. Here's the Benchmade 943, a fantastic EDC knife. Tough, fast, super sharp with S30V steel. Both of these are S30V. In the 170, I think, range, something like that for this knife. And this one is in the 100, 110, I can't remember for sure. What else? Maybe we'll get, oh, here's another one. CRKT. CRKT Ripple. It's a great knife, and this is, once again, one of those representations of a very, very thin knife for EDC. Super easy to carry, super lightweight. Pretty good and tough, too, frame lock. And if we were to do one more, I guess since we showed it to you earlier, it's kind of hard to say that this is in the range of a tough EDC knife, but it's an outstanding everyday carry from my perspective, and that's the Kershaw Leek, designed by Ken Onion. Fantastic, and it does kind of have a little bit of the blade shape quality that the Silent Soldier does, with that sheep's foot kind of thing going on. It's got a very aggressive tip, leans way forward, digs right into whatever you're working on. I love that about the knife. It's really cool, and I dig that about the Kershaw Leek as well. So again, the price-wise, you're looking at, for the Silent Soldier, anywhere from $219 to $239. Again, this version I think is about $239. Other varieties can be down to about $219. 110-ish, 170-ish, what was this, 80, 90-ish, something like that, and 45-ish, maybe, something like that. So, yeah, price-wise, how does it compare against, other quality EDCs? I would say that it's a little bit up there, but we're talking about something that is borderline custom. In fact, if we look at the statement that came with the Jason Brous card, or with the box, I should say, here it is. Let's see if we can dig this out and look at it. And here he is. It says, serial number 110 of 1,000. D2 tool steel, if I didn't mention that before. And he says, with the purchase of this, you receive a lifetime of sharpening and refurbishing for your blade. That's really cool. He says, don't take it apart. I think he also's got, let's see. Yeah, we're pleased to offer a certificate of authenticity. There's a limited 1,000-piece run. Semi-custom, he calls it, Brous Blades folder. So, by that, I think he means that he hadn't done a whole lot of these, and he's probably got his hands on each one. So you're talking about, when you get to the sort of the semi-custom realm, and if in fact Jason is putting his hands on each one of these and doing final touches or doing some of the work, that price point, $219 is actually quite affordable. And I know some of you guys absolutely love Brous Blades. I think they do fantastic work. I've been looking at Brous Blades for a long time, trying to justify buying one or two of them, and I want several of them still. The Silent Soldier was the first one that I was able to get a hold of. Thanks to Jason Brous for sending me this one. If I didn't say that at the beginning of the video, he did in fact send this one to me for review. And I think it's, again, a fantastic knife given the limitations that it does have. I appreciate you guys watching this review. That is the Silent Soldier Flipper from Brous Blades. I'm Blade Boy Scout. Thanks for watching.
Sage 2. Here's the Sage 2. Titanium. Frame lock. Wow, cool. Same pocket clip, except not blackened. Same reversibility. Same steel.